The boarding pass sat folded in Imogen's coat pocket, the way it always did when she flew economy on purpose. Not because she couldn't afford otherwise. Because she liked the quiet of being nobody. She was standing at gate 34 of Toronto Pearson International, a paper cup of Tim Hortons in one hand. Carry-on rolled beside her left foot when she heard it. That laugh. The specific frequency of it, high at the start, dropped off into something almost bored, hit her somewhere between her shoulder blades before she even turned around. Brendan Steele, he was standing near the window, the gray winter light of January catching the silver in his hair. 5 years had done something for him aesthetically, she had to admit that. The suit was better, the posture was better. He'd lost the slight softness around his jaw. But the way he was looking at the gate agent, that half-impatient, half-amused look like the world owed him a slightly faster pace, that hadn't changed at all. The woman beside him was tall, dark-haired, laughing at something on his phone. She wore a coat Imogen recognized. Structured, expensive. The kind you bought to signal something to other people in airports. Imogen turned back to her coffee. She had 20 minutes before boarding. She could simply not do this. She didn't get 20 minutes. Wait, Brendan said, and she heard the exact moment his voice shifted from conversation into performance. Imogen? Imogen Calloway? She turned slowly. The way she'd learned to do most things that mattered. Brendan. Her voice was even. Warm enough not to be rude, cool enough not to invite. He crossed the distance like he owned it. That had always been his particular talent. Moving through any space as if it had been arranged for him in advance. I don't believe it. He was grinning. The grin she'd once found charming, then tolerated, then understood. What are you doing at Pearson? I thought you were still out west. Passing through Vancouver? He tilted his head. Still doing the, what was it you were doing? The environmental consulting thing? The environmental consulting thing. She could have corrected him. She let it sit. Something like that, Imogen said. The woman drifted over. Brendan's arm found its way around her waist with the practiced ease of a man who understood the social utility of beautiful women. This is Claudine. Claudine, this is Imogen. We used to work together. Back when she was just starting out. Just starting out. She'd been a senior analyst at the time. 2 years his equal, technically. But Brendan had always had a gift for rewriting history in the 15 seconds between thinking it and saying it out loud. Hi. Claudine had a firm handshake and kind eyes. Imogen suspected she had no idea who she was standing next to. Nice to meet you, Imogen said and meant it. So where are you headed? Brendan asked. He was doing the thing now. The scan. Eyes moving from her coat to her shoes to her carry-on, adding it all up into a number, a category, a verdict. She recognized the calculation. She'd watched him do it to other people for years before she understood he'd always been doing it to her too. Calgary, she said. Oh. Something flickered in his expression. A small readjustment, like a man who'd been expecting the answer to be worse, and found it merely unimpressive. Business or visiting family? Business, right. He nodded with the measured sympathy she remembered from boardrooms, the nod that said, I hear you, I've filed you, I'm moving on. What kind of business takes you to Calgary in January? God, the cold. He shuddered theatrically. Claudine laughed. Just a meeting, Imogen said. Just a meeting. He repeated it back with a small smile. That particular smile, she knew that one too. It meant, how small your life must be, to call one meeting a reason to travel. Well, that's good, that's really good. It's good to see you doing, you know. Keeping at it. Keeping at it, she breathed in slowly. Let the air reach the bottom of her lungs, let it sit there. She had learned, in the years since Brendan Steele had looked across a conference table and told their director that she didn't have the strategic vision to lead this file, that there was a particular kind of exhaustion that came from explaining yourself to people who had already decided what you were. She had spent 18 months after that moment trying to prove him wrong inside the same organization. Then she had left, not because she'd lost, because she'd finally done the math on what winning there would actually cost. Always good to keep at it, she said pleasantly. Brendan launched into the update she hadn't asked for. His consulting firm, not a firm yet when she'd known him, just an idea he'd talked about over drinks until it felt more real than it was, had grown. 12 employees now, a new office on King Street West. He was flying to Calgary to pitch a provincial infrastructure project. Probably the biggest thing we've done, he said, and the pride in his voice was genuine enough that she almost felt something for him. Almost. Congratulations, Imogen said. You should see the proposal we put together. He shook his head, half admiring himself. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but Claudine can tell you, it's just genuinely good work, the kind of work where you think, this is why I started this thing. You know what I mean? I do, Imogen said. What's your meeting about? Claudine asked, not unkindly. Genuinely curious in the way people sometimes are before they've learned not to be. Imogen considered the question. Outside the terminal windows, a ground crew was moving beneath the gray belly of an aircraft. A baggage cart traced a slow arc across the tarmac. Resource allocation, she said. Some decisions about where capital goes over the next few years. Brendan's smile stayed fixed, but his eyes did the calculation again. Resource allocation was a phrase that meant nothing and could mean anything. Coming from a woman standing at an economy gate in a plain coat, he would have filed it under. Probably administrative. Probably support staff to someone with actual authority. Probably, are you flying economy, he asked? Not unkindly, but without enough care to make it kind either. I am, Imogen said. Oh, his head tilted, the same tilt from before. Filed, categorized, conclusion confirmed. I always try to upgrade when I'm flying for work. Write it off, it's worth it. Time is money, he laughed at his own phrase. Claudine smiled. You should try to get seat upgrades next time. Air Canada has that new thing where if you… Imogen. The voice came from behind her right shoulder. She turned. Theodore Marsh was 6'1", mid-50s, the kind of face that had been significant long enough that it had settled into its own importance without effort. He was her company's head of infrastructure development, and the fact that he was walking across a public airport gate toward her told Brendan Steele exactly nothing. Theodore dressed the way she did when she flew, unobtrusively. He carried his own bag. Theo, she said. I didn't know you were on this flight. Changed it this morning. The morning briefing ran long. He stopped beside her, glanced at Brendan and Claudine with the unhurried attention of a man who had no need to assess anyone quickly anymore. Are these friends of yours? Colleagues, she said. Old ones. Brendan Steele, this is Theodore Marsh. The name registered on Brendan's face in stages. Not all at once. That would have been too clean, too cinematic. First a flicker, then a stillness. Then the very specific recalibration of a person realizing they have been operating with the wrong information. Theodore Marsh, chair of the Okafor Marsh Climate Infrastructure Fund. Featured in the Globe and Mail 3 months prior for committing $2.4 billion in private capital to green energy transition projects across Western Canada. The man whose office had sent back Brendan's firm's preliminary inquiry. Imogen had seen the email. She knew she'd been the one who'd flagged it, with a polite form letter. Theodore extended a hand. Brendan shook it. His palm, Imogen suspected, was not entirely dry. Good to meet you, Theodore said, with the complete sincerity of a man who meant it in the most neutral possible way. You too. Brendan's voice had found a new register. The careful one. The one he used with people whose approval suddenly mattered. We submitted something to your team last spring. Steel Consulting, Infrastructure Decarbonization. Theodore nodded once, non-committal. Not unkind. Of course. This. Brendan laughed. The laugh was slightly shorter than it should have been. Totally understand. Theodore turned back to Imogen. I wanted to catch you before boarding. The Calgary team confirmed the room change. We're in the Bow Valley boardroom now, not the one on 7. And Hargreaves pushed the afternoon session to 3:30, so you have a bit more space in the morning. Good, Imogen said. That works better anyway. I wanted to walk the site before we talked numbers. That's what I thought. Theodore smiled. It was the smile of a man who had worked alongside someone for 9 years and trusted them entirely. I'll let you finish your coffee. He moved off toward the windows, pulling out his phone. The gate had gone relatively quiet. Claudine was looking at Imogen, with an expression that had moved through several phases in the last 40 seconds, and arrived somewhere Imogen recognized. The slow upward revision of someone realizing they had made assumptions they couldn't take back gracefully. Brendan was still holding his coffee. He seemed to have forgotten it was there. You work with Theodore Marsh, he said. It was not quite a question. I work for myself, Imogen said pleasantly. Theo's on the board. You're bored. Yes. Silence. Brendan's mouth opened. She had seen this particular expression exactly once before, on a man who'd tried to negotiate a lease on a property he hadn't known she owned. The expression that said, I am rewriting history again, very fast, and I don't have quite enough material to work with. What exactly is it that you said resource allocation, Calloway Capital, she said simply. No performance in it, no emphasis. The way you said things that didn't need help. She watched the name land. She watched him do the search in his head. The Globe features, the industry announcements, the profile in Canadian business that her communications director had pushed her to agree to 2 years ago, and which she still wished she hadn't. Calloway Capital, founded 9 years ago by a former environmental analyst who'd left the firm quietly and taken 3 clients with her. Now managing $800 million in sustainable infrastructure assets. 41 employees across Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary. The woman at the economy gate in the plain coat with the Tim Hortons. Brendan's eyes moved to her carry-on, the plain black one, the one he had categorized 12 minutes ago as the carry-on of someone who was keeping at it. I didn't know, he said. I know, Imogen said. She said it without heat, without satisfaction, even or at least without the satisfaction showing. There had been a time, early on, in the years when she was building the thing out of almost nothing, when she had imagined versions of this moment, had rehearsed in the dark at 2 a.m., while reviewing term sheets, some version of what she would say to Brendan Steele if she ever ran into him with enough height to look down. In those rehearsals she had always been sharper. Funnier. More devastating. Standing here, she found she mostly felt tired, not unhappy, just aware of how much of her own time and attention she had given to a man who had never deserved the weight of it. Calloway Capital is, we've referenced your model in our own proposals. He said it like it might help. Like it might build a retroactive bridge over the last 15 years. The work you've done in the Rockies corridor especially, Brendan. Her voice was quiet, not cold, just settled. You don't have to, he stopped. I'm glad the firm is growing, she said, and she was. She found, examining it, that she genuinely was. Not because she owed him anything, but because she had released her investment in his failure a long time ago. 12 employees is real, that's worth being proud of. Something moved across his face. Not relief, it was more complicated than that. Closer to the particular shame of a person who has just been offered kindness they hadn't earned and couldn't refuse. I was wrong, he said. When I said what I said. In that meeting, the Whitfield file, she didn't say anything. I think I knew it wasn't entirely fair, he said. It was competitive and I know what it was, Imogen said. She did. She had known for a long time. It hadn't stopped it from costing her 18 months of her life, a promotion she'd deserved, and 2 years of believing something diminished about herself. But she knew what it was. The gate agent announced pre-boarding. Families with small children. Passengers requiring additional time. Claudine touched Brendan's arm gently. She had the look of a person who understood they were witnessing something private and was trying to make themselves less present without moving. I should get back to Theo, Imogen said. She picked up her carry-on. Safe flight, Brendan. Good luck with the pitch. She turned and walked toward the window where Theodore was standing, still on his phone, looking out at the gray tarmac. Behind her, she heard nothing for a moment. Then Claudine's voice low. Brendan, that's very quietly. I know. Theodore put his phone away as she approached. Old friend? He asked. Old colleague. Seemed tense. It was fine. She looked out at the aircraft. Somewhere under it, luggage was being loaded into the hold. Her bag was in there. Economy. She flew economy because she liked the quiet of being nobody, and because she had never needed a window seat or extra legroom or a warm towel to know what she was worth. It was actually fine. Theodore nodded. He had known her long enough not to push. The Calgary Rockies were buried under cloud when they boarded. The plane was full. Imogen took her seat, 24C, middle, and pulled out the proposal she'd been reviewing since 5 that morning. Numbers, site maps. A grid of projected returns over 30 years. Somewhere behind her, she could hear Brendan in a row further back talking to Claudine. His voice was lower than it had been at the gate. The performance had gone out of it. She put her earbuds in, opened the file, went to work. The flight to Calgary was 2 hours and 14 minutes. She spent it the way she'd spent most of the last 9 years, building something. Not proving anything to anyone, not waiting to be seen. Just working quietly, at the thing she'd always known she was capable of. Somewhere over the prairies, her phone buzzed once with a message from her assistant back in Vancouver. She glanced at it. The Okafor Marsh team confirmed for Thursday. Also, someone named Steele Consulting submitted a follow-up to your office this afternoon. Same proposal as before, rerouted from Theo's team. Should I file it with the others? Imogen looked at the message for a moment. Outside the small oval window, the flat white expanse of the prairies stretched on without interruption, clear and enormous and utterly indifferent to all the small recoveries happening 30,000 feet above it. She typed back, file it, we can look at it properly next week. She meant it. Not as a favor. Not as closure. Just as the ordinary unhurried work of a person who had more than enough room to be fair. She put the phone away, returned to the numbers. Below the cloud cover somewhere, Brendan Steele was flying, to pitch the biggest project his firm had ever attempted. To a provincial government that would very likely send him to a regional office, which would forward the materials to a review committee, which reported to a deputy minister, who had been introduced to Imogen Calloway at a conference in Banff 3 years ago, and still sent her a Christmas card. She didn't think about that. There was no satisfaction left in it. There was only the work, and the window, and the slow gray sky above the prairie's opening, somewhere ahead into blue.